ago maybe, speaking to you, and you guys participated in our project basically for the Philippines, right after the big super typhoon, and we brought over some systems, some water systems there, and thank you for that support. Since I joined Rotary about 5 years ago, so I'm a newbie compared to all of you, and I started specifically to do water projects, but I wanted to do it a different way than Rotary's been doing it or most NGOs. And so I started H2Open Doors, and the name is a mashup. H2O meaning water technologies, and open doors meaning opportunity. So I wanted to find a technology that I can install in villages and schools and hospitals throughout the world that was robust enough that it would provide that community with enough drinking water every day, but that also it was enough water that they could go and they could sell it, and that the money that they raised could go back to their own social services. So I'm going to describe where we've been in these last 4.5 years or so and where we're going. And I'm going to give you a pitch about some future collaboration that we can do with you. And so far we've had about 25 clubs throughout the world that have participated in these projects. And I hope it'll inspire you and see some potential in your World Services Committee. So H2Open Doors. What we've been doing is we've been installing this particular system called the SunSpring. It's a solar-powered, wind-powered water purification plant that provides 5,000 gallons or 20,000 liters every single day from any source. So this is one that we were demoing at Woodside High. A lot of the trips that we've taken, specifically to Mexico, we've taken students from Redwood High and Woodside High, 20 at a time, 15 at a time, to Mexico. And our partner down in Mexico is Vicente Fox, who's the former president of Mexico, who I'll get into a little bit more. But we had about 2 weeks that we had this displayed. We actually, the reason why we had it here was you guys just did a color run. We did a color run 3 years ago at Courthouse Square in Redwood City, the Oktoberfest, and we did a 5K color run. Biggest mistake I ever made, because I wasn't smart like you in hiring a company to run that. I did it myself with a team of people. But anyway, on the Courthouse Square, we had a SunSpring, and that's what the runners used to drink fresh water on. And then we brought it over to Woodside High for their quad. Water education peace is our mantra. We've got it on our shirts, and we've got it on the shirt for each project. But really, when you get into it, and what I'm hoping to demonstrate to you is that it's all 6 areas of focus. An H2Open Doors project focuses on all 6, and I'm going to describe it as I go along. Here's a little cartoon I made that describes the project in 2 minutes.
What if you could help empty half the world's hospital beds?
Oh,
What if you could put cutting-edge technology to...
Oops.
Sorry. Let's try that again.
Sorry about that, John.
No problem. Interesting. Go back and play. Sorry about that. My fault. Okay.
What if you could help empty half the world's hospital beds? What if you could put cutting-edge technology to use to provide safe water to the poorest on Earth? What if you could tap into the power of a multinational organization that can actually get it done? A small California Rotary Club decided to start doing just that with SunSpring, a self-contained solar-powered water purification system that can produce up to 5,000 gallons of pure water every day from any source. That's about 38,000 half-liter bottles every day. Filtered down to 0.02 microns, blocking bacteria, protozoan cysts, even viruses. Invented and produced in Colorado, SunSpring has a lifespan of 10 years. Once it's on site, it can be up and running within 3 hours, and it can be outfitted with an optional wind turbine. No fuel and no electric grid needed ever. SunSpring has already been deployed in several countries in a variety of conditions. Where it's being used, villages often use it to establish a social business, often run by women, to sell the surplus water. This little water economy assures proprietorship and sustainability. We're H2Open Doors, a project of the Rotary Foundation of Peninsula Sunrise. Rotary International has 40 years of success in beating back polio, and now we're tackling the global water crisis. We're asking you to help us do something about the 3.5 million who die each year from contaminated water. That's more than the populations of Marin, San Francisco, San Mateo, and Santa Clara counties combined. Just go to H2OpenDoors.org to learn more, including how we're involving high school students in this endeavor. Then join us to do something amazing. Water, education, peace.
Okay. So a lot of times cartoons explain everything, so I'm done. That's all I have to say. Thank you. Bye. The water crisis is explained in a lot of statistics, and sometimes these statistics the numbers are too big and they don't mean anything. But the good news is that the Millennium Goals have been met. In other words, those goals set up by the UN in the year 2000, when looked at in 2015, several of the metrics were met. For instance, the one metrics that moves me the most is the number of children under the age of 5 that die of waterborne disease every year, or every day. It was, in 2000, it was pegged at about 4,400 children died every single day of waterborne disease. That was halved. The goal was to cut in half all these figures. So the good news is in 2015, it's 2,200. So that's great. We should all feel great about that. When you look a little deeper, though, the reality is all the improvement in all the different metrics, not just that one metrics, happened in the urban areas. It did not happen in the rural areas. So the rural poor are left out of the equation. There's been no improvement. As a matter of fact, it's sliding backwards. So the bad news is today, 2,200 children under the age of 5 will die of waterborne disease, diarrhea and so on. So that's the bad news. Now, the 2,200 figure is even too big to fathom and to understand. So think of 11 jumbo jets filled with children under the age of 5. So, I always think, if a jumbo jet tomorrow or today crashes to the earth filled with 5-year-olds, that would be headline news, right? But if 11 did, and that happened yesterday and the day before and the day before, and it's going to happen tomorrow, the world would stop on its axis. Nothing would be more important. We had this experience during 9/11 where the world actually for a couple minutes, came together, to try to understand what just happened. So the same thing here. I gave the same speech, the same topic to the Fremont Club, by the way, and one guy raises his hand and he says, I question your whole premise. There's no way that a jumbo jet can be filled with 5-year-olds. and then I'm crickets and it's quiet. And then one guy says, Bob, you're an idiot, it's a simile. And somebody else stands up and says, no, you idiot, it's a metaphor. And then the whole, I lost total control of the group. It was amazing. The rural poor are forced to spend up to 1/3 of their daily income on bottled water. Now, Mexico's an interesting example. We're going back to Mexico. We're bringing 10 Rotaractors and some adults on August 6th to put in a water plant. But in Mexico, it's particularly interesting. 80% of the water, the bottled water that they buy, is from 4 companies: Coca-Cola, Pepsi-Cola, Danone, and Nestle. 80% of the water they have to buy. The rural poor have to buy from these companies. Mexico is the #1 consumer per capita of bottled water. By contrast, the U.S., what do you think the U.S. is in per capita consumers of bottled water in the world? We're number 8. And that's logical when you consider that there's other sources for perfect, beautiful water. Most of our taps. We have the Clean Water Act here, so on and so forth. But Mexico's #1. They have no other resource except bottled water. So they're the #1 consumers per capita. Well, the poor have to buy bottled water. They have to buy it from one of these 4 companies, right? And pay 1/3 of their daily income. So there's something wrong with that proposition. That, in a nutshell, is what the H2Open Doors project is about. We believe in a world where more people have a cell phone than they have access to bottled water, that Rotary can do something about that. And when I started this project, I decided to join Rotary to start this project in the context of Rotary, because we have 35,000 freaking clubs in every region, more areas than the UN. So I figured we can do something about this. So we're in year 4 of it, and we're doing okay. We got about 16 systems installed. Each one, if you think about it, can provide 10,000 people with a half a gallon of water every day. That's a lot of water. We don't drink a half a gallon of water a day. So we got 16 of those in place. 10,000 people can have a half a gallon of water every day because at full capacity it can do 5,000 gallons. Right? So that's what H2Open Doors is about. And I like to say we can solve a lot of these big problems that we have in the world with a little technology and a whole lot of soul. And I've always felt that. And then I said, well, where am I going to get the soul from? And I said, well, I'm going to get the soul from Rotary. That's where I'm going to get the soul from. The technology, I spent a year before I joined Rotary vetting different technologies. And I found this particular technology, this SunSpring system in Colorado. So I've done this backwards the way most people would do. You find a community, a village, you love that village, you want to be everything for that village, and that's who you help year after year after year. I'm backwards. I found a technology that I love, and I'm finding where can I install this technology. So it takes us all over the world. The SunSpring, and I'll just go through the technology real briefly. It's got a capacity of 20,000. We buy it from the factory for 20,000. Most people buy it for about 25,000. So we get a Rotary discount. Uses no electricity or fuel. It's got a wind turbine and a solar panel which power 24-volt marine batteries at the base. Above that is a pump shelf and a pump. The pump draws the water from any source, a river, a lake, a well, whatever, under pressure across 5 stages of ultrafiltration, all compacted into this system. The 5th stage is membranes. Membranes is the technology that's used all up and down the peninsula in the water treatment facilities. That's how we get our pure water. Think of membranes as spaghetti, strands of spaghetti that are hollowed out. And along the sides of the membrane are pores. And these pores are 20 nanometers in size, which is smaller than bacteria, smaller than human harmful viruses, smaller than cysts. So that when the water is being pressed under pressure across these membranes, pure water is squeezed through, but all the bad stuff is collected on the outside. There's a computer in there that automatically back flushes all the bad stuff out the back. As soon as that bad stuff, the bacteria and viruses, are exposed to the air, they die. And then you have clean water every single day. It's a fully automatic system. So you're not constantly treating it. You don't treat it with chlorine, nothing. You're taking the contaminants out of the water and you're leaving the dissolved minerals in the water. Okay? So this is like a big, mini municipal water filtering plant in a small package on about a 4 square foot footprint. The other thing that I had to look for is I wanted something that was certified. And this carries what's called the WQA Gold Seal, Water Quality Association Gold Seal, which is an international organization. It certifies that the water that's coming out of the faucets is to US EPA standards. So I could put it in the Congo, I could put it in Haiti, I could put it anywhere, and I know that the water that's coming out of it is just like the tap in my house. And as I said, it's up and running in 3 hours. It's made in the US, made in Colorado, so it's another example of US ingenuity going overseas. Okay, and it takes 1 hour to 90 minutes of routine maintenance every month. When we install, we train a village crew on how to do that. And again, there's the purpose of Rotary. The Rotary Club in that area provides what I call the 3 M's. The 3 M's are they provide monitoring, oh man, only 10 minutes. Monitoring of the systems that they're being maintained properly, mentoring on how to start a social business and selling the water, and also some microfinancing. First trip we did was northern Thailand, 2 different hill tribe villages. We put one at a pond that was a contaminated pond of E. coli in a community of 2,500 Lisu hill tribe members, and then at a school of Karen tribe. Then we did Tacloban in the Philippines, which you guys participated in helping to fund with about 15 other clubs. Everybody's had, if you've been on an international project, you've had an experience that's changed your life forever. This was mine. I'm standing in front of a field, and what looks like litter is actually dead bodies in body bags. It's 700 dead bodies in body bags. That turned out to be 10% of the total death toll, about 7,000 people that died. And I asked, there was no Rotary there because they were all evacuated. But I asked our host, I said, why are they just left in this field? And they said, well, whoever would claim them are probably also in this pile. Because the wave, the big 23-foot wave that consumed that town at the harbor, took with it families. And everybody that I met had lost somebody a week before. We were there about 3 weeks after this happened. Then we went to Mexico in September, and we connected with Vicente Fox. We brought, in this particular one, we went to Ciudad Guzman, which is it's a city, it's a sister city of Redwood City. That's why we went there. KGO came before we went and did a whole little show about us going. That's us in Mexico. And every time we go, as we will be in August, Mr. Fox and his staff put on a President of the Day exercise. He spends about 90 minutes with the kids talking with them, giving them, some great insight. Mr. Fox is the real deal. He's the only former president that still lives in Mexico, and he's still doing it. He's the real deal.
Wow.
And then we went to Guatemala with 5170 district, Santa Cruz and Watsonville. We put in a system on the roof of a clinic there, and since then we've got two other systems, so we've got 3 systems there. All of their water this is Lake Atitlan, if you're familiar with Guatemala at all. All 40,000 Mayans live around the lake. All their waste goes into the lake, and then they pump it back up and use it for everything else. So these systems are pretty important and very appreciated there. This is the one up on the roof of the clinic. They put on a big feast for us. We put in a couple more. Just the Mayan people are amazing, little characters. I'm going to go pretty fast through that. Then we went to, last April, we went to to Haiti. We didn't go to Port-au-Prince. We took a 14-hour drive across washed out roads to Lazy Wa, an isolated area. We lost 2 tires on the way. Bringing a Sunspring there, 20,000 people. I'm the second white man they've ever met. And they have no clean water there, but they dug a well, which is a contaminated well. We put a Sunspring at a school. Another life-changing experience, I'm sitting with the mayor of that town of 20,000, and he's got his daughter there, and I asked the question which I always ask, which is, last year, how many kids under the age of 5 died of diarrhea or died of waterborne disease? And he started crying. And he looks at his daughter and he says, 54. We had a cholera epidemic last year. And so then I started crying, then everybody at the table started crying, and it's one of those experiences. These trips have this kind of profound effect on you. This is us putting up the system in the schoolyard there. Friends for life because of WhatsApp. I get constant messages from them. Typical scene where we'd see, girls walking with water from the water point. We asked her how far is the water point. She says, I don't know how far, but it's 2.5 hours each way. Then Mexico last year, San Miguel de Allende, with Mr. and Mrs. Fox and Chrisma. We put in a system there that's a water bottling operation. Took a lot of students, as you can see. These are the water bottles that they're selling. I'm going to go through this kind of fast because my time's up. This is the President of the Day exercise where we've done this 4 times, where one of the kids is elected by the other kids to be President of the Day, and then everybody else is the cabinet. And they have to, they sit behind Mr. Fox's desk, and they're asked to speak on the current affairs and what would be Mexico's response to this particular issue. That's the little glory picture. Here's a message from Mr. Fox.
It's so important to me, this next message, as well as it is important and strategic to Mexico, especially to the poor, to those who do not enjoy opportunity. This incredible association on H2Open Doors and Rotary International, it's being of great support to Mexico and Mexican poor people that do not enjoy pure, clear water on what they drink every day. So here we are working with Vamos Mexico Foundation, which also...
I'll just keep going. So he's a great support down there. We'll see him again. This is AT&T last year, who's a customer of ours. I own a marketing company. They're a customer. They bought 2 telecommunication companies in Mexico last year, and they said, you ought to support Mexico instead of just selling them cell phones, support them with water. So they gave us $50,000, and we bought 2 systems, and we created 2 water bottling plants there. And they marketed it like crazy, as you can imagine, as they should have. But that's the water bottling, one of the water bottling plants. In August 6th, we're going in to do the second one in Nayarit State, which is on the west coast, for the indigenous population there. And that produces water in 20 and 10-liter bottles, and they buy it at 1/3 of what the going rate is, and then all the profits go back to their own social services. We have the AT&T logo on there at H2Open Doors. And when they're bottling it, you can see they've got hats and white aprons and white boots, and the Rotary Club there provides all that for them. We also went back to Central Fox and met with Mr. Fox, of course. For Nepal, we had 2 H2Open golf tournaments, one in Half-Moon Bay and one in Illinois. And we raised the money to go to Nepal following their earthquake. And so, believe it or not, I just got back from Nepal. This was last year, but our shipments were stuck on the border, the Indian border, for 9 months. So it just got released in June, and the president of the SFO club and I went over there to install the 2 systems, and we just got back. We went over July 4th week. In April, we went to Cuba. We brought 40 people to Cuba, including Jerry Fujimoto, our current BG. And we're exploring a particular site at a village for a Sunspring installation. And now we're working through all the incredible bureaucracy with the embargo to get our donation of the system in there. Got the money raised and all that. And we're going to go back in April. So this next April, and that's what these save the dates are, we're going to go back to Nepal in February and install a 3rd system on the roof of a hospital in Kathmandu, and then take a trek through the Annapurna Mountains. And then in April, we're going to go to Cuba. So consider going. We'll have more information in a month when I have all the details lined up, but use that as a save the date, because I'd love to have some of you guys on that trip. Cuba was amazing. I'm going to go through this kind of fast. This is how they move water in Cuba, by the way, still with ox carts. That's how they do it.
I'm saying she'll go.
These are the kids at the village that we're going to put, and they're sitting on the water tank waiting for us to be able to pipe water to them, but we don't have approval from the provincial government. I mean, it's just a bureaucracy, so we're working that through. They did a big feast for us, and yeah, that was fun. And then each member brought a suitcase of donations for that village. Each individual person. One of the guys, my friend Brad, I brought, I play golf with him every week and stuff, and he used to coach a baseball team, a Little League baseball team in Hillsborough. I said, you know what? They're baseball fanatics. Bring something. So he brought 24 baseballs, 12 baseball mitts, branded baseball mitts, and 2 bats. It turns out this village, Corcovado, on the eastern side of Cuba, was known as having the best community baseball team in Cuba. And they hadn't played in the last 2 years because they had no equipment. So his particular donation, I don't know if I have a picture of him presenting. That's Brad. The town delegate, they were very excited about that. So of course we had a big baseball game. And they kicked our butts, you know. Yeah, really good. Then we had, and we'll do this again in April, we had a big cocktail party. So there's 40 of us, and we invited 80 Cuban entrepreneurs. And we met at the Hotel Nacional in their nicest ballroom, so it's 120 of us. And we broke up into groups and had a presentation. I wanted to talk about Rotary because Rotary's been out of there for 37 years. So I wanted to talk about, hey, if we had a Rotary Club formed back in Havana, all the things that we could do. So we broke up into 4 different groups: education, water and infrastructure, the arts, and something else I can't remember. And so this went on for 2 hours of just listening to the Cubans and them listening to us. One of the guys that shows up is this guy, Omar Perez. It turns out he's Che Guevara's son.
Really?
He's 61, he's my age, he's 61. He has never in his entire life seen Americans and Cubans in conversation. That's how long the embargo's been going. It's like 58 years now. And he was emotional about it. He was very, very moved. So that was an amazing, we're gonna do that again. Well, this time we'll have 120 Cuban entrepreneurs networking and talking about, what do we need to do to help them form up a Rotary Club? Of course, we have to get through the Evanston bureaucracy, but other than that. One of the guys that came with us is the international president or the president of the International Association of Fire Chiefs. He presented to the Havana fire chief this little model of a fire truck. Looks like Christmas Day, right? For cigars. I mean, the trip to Cuba is just amazing, amazing. Riding in the old cars.
Wow.
We're on our way to the Buena Vista Social Club. I mean, it's just magical country, just magical. This is the time to go if you ever wanted to go. The waterfalls. Nepal again, and this is the first thing I saw in Nepal last month, or this month, was a whole wall of Rotaract murals about clean water. I mean, they've got 92 Rotary clubs in Nepal. Contrast that with Cuba, 0. It was just interesting. They're still reconstructing. Just a fascinating. This is a Helping Hands Community Hospital, and this was built by this guy Narayan Shrestha, and we were with him and his NGO Helping Hands, and we also installed in the school that he built for 700 students. This is some of the people that went with us. This is the roads that we traveled. This is a ladder. I asked for a ladder, and they built a ladder for me. And we installed a couple systems. So this is the Monkey Temple there, Nepal. So we're going to do all this and more when we go back to Nepal in February. So H2Open Doors. It's a project of Rotary clubs throughout the world. I didn't create it to make an empire. I created it to be a replicable model for other clubs to participate in. And keep up to date on h2opendoors.org and also our Facebook page. There's all sorts of new information posted there all the time. I'll take questions if we have time, and I'll stay after as long as you want. Yes?
Well, who funds all of you going?
We've done like every once in a while we'll have a corporate sponsor. Sometimes we'll have, I have various ways. I'm a marketing guy, so I have various ways that I fundraise, and then sometimes I get money from Rotary clubs. In the past, it's been difficult to get DDF funds because I don't do grants. I don't want the bureaucracy of the grants. The system only costs $20,000, so maybe my total is $30,000. Well, that is a minimum for a global grant, but it's just not worth the hassle, so I raise the money in other ways. This year's the first year where a district governor has said, you know what? You can get DDF funds from every club without having a filed grant. I always thought that was the rule written in the Bible, but apparently it's at the Rotary Club. And then the most important is we have an NGO partner. And that NGO partner is the ones that we communicate with mostly. Because the Rotary Club is kind of transit in a lot of these places, and they're not, they have an overview.
We heard that's a weak link.
They're helpful. It is a weak link, yeah. They're helpful, but I don't rely on them. It's the NGO.
NGOs, missionaries.
It's different, yeah. It could be part of a church, Catholic church, or it's all. But we look for that solid NGO, and then we have a very strong memo of understanding written with them, and then we're monitoring every month. So we know how much is being used and...
How about some of that pay or the proceeds from the sale of the water?
Yeah, that's the idea where they start to, and that's where Rotary helps. They mentor them and, okay, here's what a bank account is.
Wow.
Here's how you create books. Here's something called Excel, like all that. They do that. They're very good at that. But the NGO is really the ones that we rely on.
Yeah, okay, good.
Yeah. Good. Yeah. So all of them are operational, all of them are doing well. Not all of them are selling water. Only 3 out of the 16 are actually selling water.
So they just give it?
So they're just giving it to their community.
The community,
Yeah, good question.
Jerry.
John, this is truly an amazing story and an amazing Rotary story. I want to talk to you some more. But how did you get started in it? What drew you into this?
Before I joined Rotary, I was a fairly substantial donor to water.org, if you know that. It's Matt Damon's organization. And at the time, all they were doing was sticking straws in the earth and doing pumps and wells. And to your point, at any given time, 40 to 60% of wells and pumps are inoperable in the world.
Yeah.
So they had this big marketing push, and they said, this year we installed 1,000 wells in Kenya. Next year we're going to install 1,000 wells in Ghana, so send us money. And I just made a very large donation. And I went to the board and I said, look, you got to say, instead of next year we're going to Ghana to install 1,000, you got to say we're going back to Kenya and fix the 40 to 60% of the wells that are broken. You have to say that. And they said, their response to me at that time, I think to their credit, they changed this attitude, but at that time they said, well, we'll never be able to raise money that way. So I said, then give me my money back. They said no, and then I said, well, then I got to, So I didn't want to, my thing was I didn't want to stick straws in the earth. I wanted to purify the contaminated water that already is available. There's an adequate supply, an abundant supply of contaminated water in the world. And we don't have to go into the aquifer. And my problem with the Philippines one is all they had was a borehole. That's the only water they had in that one barangay. And they dried it up. And there's no way to get water to that community, raw water. It's not making water, it needs water. And there was no, but we were in such a hurry, in the relief area that we said, okay, well, they said they had a borehole, so we used that. Then it dried up, and then there was no more water for that community. So we always look for, is there an abundant supply of water, even if it's contaminated? Yes?
There are membrane systems, I believe, or countercurrent systems for desalinating ocean water.
Yeah.
And if that place is near the ocean,
Yeah.
you just
That's
change, put an extra set of
That's right.
things, maybe
Yeah.
a slightly bigger tank, and you've got it.
Our RO is extraordinarily expensive. This is just for fresh water. It doesn't handle that.
Yeah.
And it's not reverse osmosis in that, with reverse osmosis RO systems, you're slamming water against even smaller holes, if you can believe it.
Yes.
And so what you come out with is you waste about 80% of the water, you get about 20% of the water that's pure because those holes are so small. And you get distilled water with no mineral content or anything, any of the essential minerals. So it's a very, very, very expensive, very energy consumption prospect for RO. And you really can't do that with solar like this unless you had a room filled with solar panels. I mean, it's very consumptive in energy. But what we've found is that there is enough of those water sources, if you plan it right, that we can use, that we can tap into. And so that's what we look for. It's part of the formula of what we're looking for.
Last question? Any more? Thank you, John.
Thank you.